What's up, Spikes? We are back with another Goliath Gauntlet wrap-up. And today we are going to be talking about the gauntlet that just finished up last week. And it featured myself and this beautiful, beautiful little baby boy right here, Eliot.
That's me.
And we were putting Benji, OTK Benji, through the gauntlet against 5 different decks. Overall, just to preface this, I do think that the deck was not optimal, but still did pretty well. And I think I have since made some changes from when we actually filmed those games. And I think it is even slightly better now. But it did give me a really good idea of what direction the deck should play in, like how it feels like it wants to be played, you know, as weird as that is to say. But how did you feel playing against Benji?
I guess as you guys would have seen in a lot of the matchups, I felt pretty bad. Yeah, felt kind of unwinnable a lot of the time. Just obviously Benji's ability is really strong against basically any deck that can't bring a lot of block in their equipment. Just, I guess, up front, right? I think that was my first time playing against the deck. And like you said, your version hadn't necessarily been optimized or anything like that. I definitely feel a little more comfortable playing around the kind of strategy now. Again, this is, I guess, behind the curtains, like a couple weeks even later after we filmed those games. We filmed that, obviously to give Jim time to edit it, to make it timely or whatever. We filmed it basically the week of Everfest release. I think
it was pretty fast, I think, if I remember correctly.
And I just wanted to try out the new toys, and deck is, still really strong. Yeah. So feels pretty bad to play against.
Yeah. And the impressive thing too is I've heard since in one of the Pro Quests, there was a player that actually brought a Benji deck to a Pro Quest. Right. And he won one game, which doesn't sound very impressive, but considering you're against somebody that has 40 life, you're at 17 yourself because Benji doesn't have an adult version, so it's just 17. He won a game versus a CC deck that was tuned for a Pro Quest and apparently got multiple opponents down to less than 10 life before he died, which is obscene. That's crazy. Obviously, I don't know if that means that Benji is good enough for CC, but I think it does really... It speaks to the power of the deck and how important some of the new tools that Benji got in Everfest really, caused the deck to shine. But with all that being said, let's get into the actual roundup itself. Game 1 was versus Dash. And I did end up winning that game. There were a couple things that were kind of in my favor. The fact that I was able to make a Zen State token actually blocked for a decent amount. I don't remember quite how much off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it was probably 6 or 8 block.
Yeah, I think it was a lot because it lasts 2 turns, right?
It lasts 2 turns and it just takes 1 damage off of everything. So especially with your the build specifically that you were playing, which is a very boost heavy go wide thing, the more attacks you do, the more value I get out of that Zen State for those 2 turns.
Right.
So that was pretty interesting. There was also a turn that you weren't too happy about, which may or may not have caused some amount of difference in how the game could have played out. But you want to run us through that?
Yeah, I imagine that I went over it a bit in the video, kind of at the end as well. But in case that part got cut, because I'm not sure when I was talking about it necessarily in the filming process, but. I had changed the deck around to not be induction chamber pistol focused. It was the shotgun, the plasma barrel shot. Again, like you're saying, trying to, with the inclusion of T-Bone now from Everfest, really committing to going wide on boost turns and then therefore playing, still the max velocities, but then the plasma barrel shot and the, what's the other one called? Pulverize, I think. No, that's the Guardian.
Yeah, that's the Guardian one. Teclo Pounder?
Yes, Teclo Pounder as well, but there's some other red 2-drop.
Payload.
Yeah. Kind of at the top end to kind of bring home a lot of damage there. But as it happened, I made those changes to the deck that day and then missequenced my first turn to not be able to use the plasma barrel shot to get in. I think it only would have been 2 or 3
Yeah.
extra damage. But yeah, it was a big blunder on my part.
I mean, and again, that we can sort of chalk that up to both of us just being new to the decks. Again, it was pretty quickly after Everfest was released. It was, we wanted to play with the new cards. Sometimes you just don't really have that sort of the puzzle isn't complete in your mind on how exactly everything fits together.
Yeah. Also, I'm like not good.
Yeah. There was that. Tough. So it was pretty easy, honestly. But yeah, in general, obviously Dash still feels strong. Just being able to have those big turns and stuff. Sequencing, of course, can increase the ceiling on the damage that you can do. But all in all, I thought that game was actually pretty good. And that was, of course, the first one that went up, which is great. Game 2 was Benji versus Bravo, the big guardian or the young guardian man.
Small guardian.
Yeah, he's the smaller one.
Yeah.
And you did end up winning that one. And I will say, I believe some amount of that is just due to, I think this is probably just a bad matchup for this deck.
Right.
Just in general. Like you were saying before in the preamble, decks that are able to bring a maximum amount of block, just part of their equipment suite, have a really good shot at being able to block the things that are important. And then, of course, with Bravo, you can kind of be greedy with your hands because you have so much block. And as a result, you can then have these resources and these attacks ready to swing back and threaten, like on 17 life, pulverizes 14 damage on its own, outside of anything else. So you can really threaten that whole 1 turn, like 1 or 2 turn lethal, essentially, while still very comfortably defending with basically everything you have.
Yeah. In that matchup, I think, I brought the chest is 2, the gauntlets are 2, the
shield,
crater fist, and that's what I wanted to I guess highlight, is that I brought Rampart of the Ram's Head, which I put in so much work, right? Like just that extra point of block, being able to it was crazy, because I mean, I think in that game, or maybe it was just a game that we were playing, I don't know, we'll have to maybe rewind the tape and see if this is actually something that happened. But if I remember correctly, in this game, you kind of gave up the ghost and said, oh no, I'm dead. And then I pointed out that you could block with your shield. And then I'm pretty sure because of that block with your shield, you were actually able to take it home. Yeah, I think I lived on 1 and then killed you the next turn.
Yeah, because you were able to... I
believe that did happen.
Yeah, you discarded I think it was the Grandeur, and then it gave you a Seismic Surge or something. I think that was this game. If it wasn't, then that did happen too. So
that happened at some point.
Yeah,
but I got him. I'm really good, actually. So yeah.
But I do think that's a tough matchup. I did also change out to a little bit of a grindier strategy. I took out the Mask of the Pouncing Lynx and instead was running Mask of Momentum, which I thought would maybe be able to grind out a little bit more eventual advantage instead of going straight into the combo. And I think that's the correct way to play this matchup. But at the same time,
didn't work out that game. Again, small sample size, we usually say during these kinds of things.
Like exactly 1 game.
So
Yeah, but all in all, it's obviously just good limit testing just to see where the deck doesn't shine. That's totally fine to know when you're playtesting new stuff. So
yeah, and I mean, especially right now, I don't think it's an especially young Bravo heavy Blitz meta per se. So probably not the first thing on a lot of people's minds necessarily.
Absolutely. But speaking of a hero that is catching a lot of people's attention recently, game 3 was Benji versus Rhino. Unfortunately, even though I have this whole lead up to it, I did end up winning this game. But just as a side note, Rhino has been showing up on a lot of people's radars lately. Yeah. I think that he's going to be something to look out for. I think most of the time people are talking about CC, but Swing Big is such a gigantic card. It's just so good. Yeah. It's a 2 for 8.
It's big. it's a swing, and it is a large one.
You swing bigly.
Interesting. But they should call it something like that.
if only there was somebody that could come up with a name for this card. But yes, so one of the reasons, I think the main reason that this ended up being a little bit of an awkward matchup for Rhino, something that you were saying, is just the way that Intimidate works.
Yeah, and it's just kind of the nature of the beast kind of a thing. I guess like, yeah, aggro matchups kind of thing, like against aggressive, or in your case, like this kind of, I guess technically more tempo, but like very combo oriented deck, like Intimidate, making it so that you don't even have the option to block is sometimes a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like I swing for a bunch of damage, but then you just have all of these cards in your hand still. And then if I block your cards, then I can no longer swing for a bunch of damage. And yeah, it's just kind of weird. And maybe that's just on me. Like maybe I need to change my play style on Rhino against those more aggressive decks or something like that. But I'm not very good at that necessarily, because I typically just put the pedal to the floor when I'm playing Rhino. I see the big yelling brute man on the cards in my hand, and I'm just like, oh yeah, swing big.
Yeah, you're like Awakening Bellow, Barraging Beatdown, which doesn't have a yelling man, but it does have a saber-toothed tiger getting punched repeatedly.
So many punch.
But yeah, so I do think that's a really interesting thing, because it is sort of a race. If you are depending on the Intimidate, you do have to just straight up, like as you said, pedal to the floor, just keep the pressure on, keep presenting damage, because otherwise, if you're sort of allowing the aggro deck to have even like a moment of respite where they don't have to block with the one card that you've let them keep in their hand after Intimidate, then yeah, like it can really swing back, especially with the amount of resources, and just like not just resources in general, but like resources as in cards in your hand to like pay for the additional discard costs of some of the cards. Like as soon as you start losing those, like losing that resource battle, it becomes really, really hard to mandible claw your way back into the game.
Oh God, I hate him. I hate him so much.
But yeah, anyway, so all said and done, I think that Rhinar is a weird matchup. Maybe not necessarily bad, but yeah, I think the key to it would be just sort of thinking of it in a slightly different way, instead of just, just saying, okay, I'm gonna play all these cards. Making sure that you're doing it in like either a really like heavy pressure way, or a way that allows you to have a little bit of breathing room if they attack back, and so you can still defend yourself. But all in all, I think that was a pretty good one.
For sure.
The next one I think is maybe indicative of just the difference between high roll and consistency. And
yeah, Ira is the better ninja.
Ira, unfortunately, so yeah, game 4 was Benji versus Ira, which is the main boogeyman, boogie woman, boogie ninja of the of the format. And yeah, Eliot did end up winning this one. There were a couple things. Once again, just like your hands were really good. You were able to go really, really wide. You were threatening mask triggers like twice in a row on the same turn. Yeah. Which normally I would love to ignore, but just could not. I did also, I think, go for my combo too early. I should have waited for either a more opportune time or more resources, or like an attack reaction if I had like a razor reflex or something to ensure that I'm being able to get over and actually go wide with the Spring Tidings turn. I think that would have been better. I think I was just like impatient.
Yeah.
But yeah, just in general, the amount of damage that Ira can really consistently put out, like at the very least, you're looking at Kodachi plus buffed Zephyr Needle, which is 4 damage without doing anything. Like it's just free.
It's free. It's so free. Yeah. In case anybody was, I don't know, worried, like I might have been, who knows, that like, oh, they printed Spring Tidings and now Ira is just worse Benji. I don't think so.
No.
I think they are very different decks, which I think is good and very cool.
No, absolutely. It's kind of like Ira is to Benji like Rhinar is to KO, where Rhinar is much more consistent in the amount of damage that he can put out for the most part. Like you're not having these gigantic turns all the time, but like you can pretty consistently put out like an attack for 7 and then like maybe an attack for 12 because it's buffed a couple times or whatever. Meanwhile, KO is like you attack for 3, except 33% of the time you attack for 25.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's like Ira is very consistent in that way, where she can really, really consistently put out like probably 11 to 12 damage turns without really thinking about it too hard.
Right.
And then Benji is like, you sit back, you like accrue resources, or you just like have it, and you attempt to go, and if you do end up going off, then you deal like 60 damage, and if you don't, you deal like 3.
Yeah, it can be very awkward.
Yeah, but just a really good sort of look into the different playstyles of ninja. Even though they're the same class and they're not even like talented differently, they are very different in just concept and execution, which I think is really interesting.
Flesh and Blood's really cool.
Flesh and Blood is really cool.
Yeah.
You guys ever play Flesh and Blood?
Yeah, you should try that.
It's cool. It's a cool game. There's these guys on YouTube.
Arsenal Pass.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Shout out to Arsenal Pass. You're welcome for the free promo. And then the final game of the gauntlet here was Benji versus Viscera, the rune chant, rune blade, rune master guy.
Yeah, him.
So I did end up winning this game, and I think, if I remember our talks correctly, there was some level of hubris involved.
Yeah. I may be famous or infamous at this point for saying something along the lines of being, greedy. And I definitely died in this game because I just didn't block. I was just like, no, this hand's really good. I would like to cast these, so hopefully I don't die. Then I died.
And then you did, just like Icarus when he played Flesh and Blood.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so I think the way that this game turned out, it's interesting actually with Viscera, because depending on what you have in terms of your equipment suite, you actually do have a decent amount of block just as the game starts. If you're playing Bloodsheath and Grasp, and you can also play Skullcap. Obviously, you don't ever want to block with your boots, regardless of what you're running. But like, that's still, what is that, 9 block on just 3 pieces of equipment, as long as Skullcap's active.
Yeah.
And you block with the Skelito, which you probably don't want to do, but optimally.
It blocks for the 2 every time, to be fair.
Yeah.
But,
so realistically 8 block, which is still
a lot.
Which is still really good, and especially with the good breakpoints of them being 2, Spring Tidings being 2, like stuff that you're actually able to block with and actually retain some amount of value. So yeah, all in all, I don't think that this matchup is quite as one-sided, especially because the version of Benji that I have now, as I was mentioning, I did update the list slightly since we filmed these games, and my playstyle now for the deck is block fully, like just full, like do nothing until you get Spring Tidings plus an attack reaction in some, like you can have it Arsenal or whatever, get some combination of those, and then take everything for that next turn and just don't block, retain every single card in your hand. But the thing about that is, against Viscera, unless you get to your combo really fast, and if you're playing like an OTK version, they can just deal 30 damage to you in that single turn when you're not doing anything. So
yeah,
it's a really delicate balance, a really fine line to walk for that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, the combo itself feels sweet for Benji. Being able to search for the second Spring Tidings off of the mask and just have it available, and also Breeze Rider boots, giving everything go again.
Just literally everything in the deck. Let's go again.
Yeah, everything that doesn't inherently have go again gains go again.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah. So, and anyway, I do believe that just about wraps up the wrap up here. I had a great time, as always. These gauntlets are super fun to make. I hope they're just about as much fun to watch. Do you have any tips or tricks for playing against Benji if people in their local armories are being plagued by this little tiny 17 health man?
Yeah, I mean, if it's like a real big problem at your local armory, definitely, I guess, consider leaning towards like a Bravo or a Dorinthia, maybe, like somebody Oldhim. Yeah, exactly. And like somebody that just brings a bunch of block on their equipment.
Yeah.
Or right, it's awkward, right? Because you can't really tune the deck necessarily to try to combat it, because you variance and
you also don't have like a sideboard. You have your equipment, which
definitely yeah. I would venture into some of the beefier heroes.
Yeah. Absolutely. But anyway, with that being said, Thank you guys, as always, for watching. Thank you for playing games and doing Gauntlet stuff. And we should maybe think about doing some more content in the future. How do you feel about having slightly more cards available?
Like how many more?
Like 20?
20 more?
Yeah.
So that would be what? 60?
Yeah, it'd be like 60 cards.
60
about.
cards?
Yeah.
Is there a format like that for Flesh and Blood?
I don't know. Possibly. We'll have to look into it.
Huh. We'll see. See what happens.
Anyway, we'll see you next time.
Wow.
Hey, thanks for checking out the Spike Feeders on YouTube. Before you close the window, make sure you click subscribe for more great Flesh and Blood content.